Hey everyone, this video is intended for people who might be working with small children or even perhaps kids that need a little assistance from some adults. Like I have some kids who have fine motor skill issues and they have to work with an aide in my class, and this video is intended for the aides to help them. So this is showing how we can make ornaments from cookie cutters, and I show a number of different things. I show how you can texture on the back, texture on the front, how you can stamp it, how you can carve it, how you can impress, how you can slip trail, and also how you can add wire that is a special wire that gets fired in it, or obviously just a hole in the top that we can put a wire, a loop, or a string through for hanging. Now these of course could be made into magnets. If you didn't want to put a hole in it, a magnet could just be glued on it. I do show a couple of tricks that are different from working with cookies, so it makes the cleanup a little bit easier. So let me know if you have any questions. Sometimes, all right. In order to use cookie cutters, one of the things that we're going to be needing will be slab sticks. Now, if these are going to be ornaments or magnets, I would suggest 1/4 inch in thickness, and these red sticks are 1/4 inch, and you will also need a rolling pin. I do have shorter rolling pins if you don't want a big long one. I like these if I'm trying to do a large piece of clay at one time. If you're making several at once, you might find a large one easier. I'm going to wedge up my scrap clay first. If you're using clay directly off the block, you may not have to wedge it, but if you're using scrap, just kind of give it some turns, and then I flatten it a little bit. And then with the slab sticks on either side of your clay, you want to just roll gently, a little bit at a time, stretching it. This is something that kids can do. If you have kids with some special needs, they can definitely roll this, because the rolling pin will hit the slab sticks, so they can't go any deeper than the slab sticks. It will leave a slab that's 1/4 inch thick. Now, one thing I keep doing, you will notice I keep rotating and flipping the clay. By rotating and picking it up, it releases it from the canvas. If you don't release it from the canvas, it does get stuck and the kids will have a harder time. So you want to roll until you're fully down and you can hear the rolling pin on either side. Now I will set these aside. Okay. If you have a funny texture on it, you can certainly take one of the small ribs that I have in my classroom and you can smooth it over. This is a Mud Tools rib. And you could also use the ribs that I made from like the hotel key type of things. Those work really well. I'm just going to get some of the clay off my fingers. Now, here's the difference between this and working, say, with cookie dough. With cookie dough, maybe you would add flour to it. You might have a problem with it sticking if you just push it in directly like this. So I will show you what we can do. You can use a little bit of cornstarch if you're concerned that your cookie cutter might stick. Okay, and then as you push it in and you pull it out, hopefully it won't be stuck on there. Now notice that these cookie cutters have a hole all the way through. I recommend this style as opposed to the ones where you're pressing it into it, because sometimes kids press those a little too hard and they really get stuck. If you do use the kind where it has a back on it, definitely use cornstarch on those, or else it will get stuck. So that is perfectly good, but it does leave a little bit of an edge that's maybe not the cleanest. So I want to show you an alternative of what you can do instead of using the cornstarch. And for this, I am going to use a piece of plastic. Now, if I had, say, plastic wrap or saran wrap, whatever you call it, I would use that, but I forgot to bring any from home today, so I'm just using a scrap of a clay bag. And then as I do this, I'm just going to press down right with the clay bag so the bag is there. And the bag actually will leave a really nice, smooth top edge. So if you look at that, it leaves a really nice smooth top edge. I will need to clean the back edge, but there is a definite difference. Can you see the difference between that? It really rounds it and smooths it. So I do recommend, maybe with little kids, using that plastic. It creates a really nice effect. Also, another idea, let me show that again. I'm also going to do the plastic again. Okay. All right, I'm down all the way. Now this time, before I pick it up, I'm going to do a little carving. So let's say right here, if I wanted to make my little guy, I can put a little face on him. And again, if you have kids that don't like to touch clay, this might be handy for them. We can put little details. All right, so now as I lift this up, those details are in there because I pressed through the bag, but I didn't actually carve into it, so those details do not need cleaning. Okay, so that's another alternative. Let me give you another idea. For this next one, I want to texture the backside. So I am adding cornstarch, just a real light dusting. You don't want to leave it on real thick because it can leave a texture. It's just a real light dusting on it. And then I will press this onto here very lightly, just a little bit more. I don't even need to use the slab sticks. So as I peek, I can take a peek and I have some nice texture there. And now I will cut out another one. And in this case, I'm just going to use this cool roller. Here's another method. We can use just like a little stamp. So this is like a little heart stamp. And that could be done right on the clay, or you could also stamp right on the plastic, either one. You just get a slightly different look of one being a little bit more rounded than the other. So they're both nice. Then I'm going to put this over and I'll cut it out again. So he's got little hearts there. Now, in order to clean any of these, I want to get them leather hard. If you can get them leather hard in a class bell, that's great. You could zap them with a hairdryer and then you could start to clean them. If you need to let them sit for overnight, you could put them on a wear board and then cover them with plastic, and that's what I will do. I can now cover these with a plastic bag and I can put them in the class cabinet and they'll be leather hard and cleanable for the next time. All right, now that the little cookie cutter gingerbread men have become leather hard, now I can just easily take a wet finger and smooth out the back edge. We want to make sure that we don't have anything that's going to be sharp. Trying to do it with as few tools as possible for you all. Of course, you could use any of the tools that we've used in the classroom, such as ribs or maybe vegetable peelers to really smooth and clean it, but these little guys don't take much. Just a little wet finger will be good. Now, if the children want to make these into magnets, we'll fire them as is. If you want to make them into an ornament, we would want to put a hole in it. And the hole should be big enough that we can easily get a wire through it after it fires. Now, I'm going to make a hole bigger than I really need, and for this I'm going to use a drill bit. I could do it by hand, but just for making quick work of it, I'm going to use my driver. You're welcome to use my driver if you are careful. I don't want to put it too close to the edge. I'm probably going to put it 1/4 of an inch in. I want to make sure that it's on forward, and then I just make that hole. I'll clean up any debris that's in it and have the children put their names on the backside, and we can get those fired. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest in the same manner. This is the one where I didn't use the plastic to cut it, and it has more of a straight edge, which is fine. It just requires more of the cleaning on the front and the back. There is another alternative to putting a hole in the top of an ornament, and that is to put a wire in it. Now, normal wire cannot be fired. It has to be a high temperature wire. This wire is sold as stamen wire for flowers. You could get some that was a little bit heavier, but this is a little bit cheaper and it works just fine. So this wire is designed to withstand the temperatures of a kiln. And what I do is I cut a piece about 1 inch long, and then I bend it. So I bend it into a U shape, okay? I don't know if you can see that, but I use a U shape, and then I will take it and I will insert it into the clay. And I do this when it's leather hard, after I've cleaned it, and that will be a nice little hook that will stay in it when it fires. Again, it has to be a high temperature wire designed for firing in a kiln. Do not just use something like a paper clip. You will have a mess in your kiln, and that would be bad. Now, if kids want to carve into the little ornaments after they're leather hard, they certainly could. So here I'm going to use the mini ribbon tool that we've used for lots of different things. The mini ribbon tool allows you to carve, you pull it through the clay, and it leaves a pretty clean line. So it requires a lot less cleaning. So I would suggest that if a kid has difficulty with fine motor skills, this might be kind of difficult. Okay. Another alternative to adding a design is we could slip trail. Now I keep squeezy bottles of slip that have plastic over the top. The tip should be cleaned out when it gets returned, and I keep these up at my desk. Just make sure that the tip gets cleaned out. Okay. Now, slip trailing is just like if you wanted to decorate cookies. Slip trailing is similar to frosting cookies, where you have slip and then you squeeze it out. So this is a little harder as well for kids who might have fine motor skill issues. Here we go. He looks a little crazy with big eyes. And then this tip gets cleaned out really well, and I replace the plastic over the top so it doesn't dry out. And the pieces now get bisque fired so we can glaze them and finish them after they get glazed, whether by putting a loop on it or putting a magnet on it if they want to make it a magnet.